Hi, film students. I want to make a few comments about Do the Right Thing after reading your posts. And I would say that I did note that above all, many of you commented that the film, though from 1989, does remain quite relevant, sadly, to a lot of issues that we are talking about in our country today. It is considered a contemporary classic, a very important film from Spike Lee in one of his earlier works. The film does pose a challenge to what we've looked at so far in terms of the first cinema style, Hollywood narrative, the idea that there's clarity, unity, characters who have identifiable goals, whose journey through obstacles we can follow, closure, and then unobtrusive craftsmanship. As we're looking at editing in particular, we can just talk about that last one, unobtrusive craftsmanship, and the work that I've asked you to do in thinking about montage and the way in which this film reminds you always that you are looking at this story unfold through the lens of a camera, which is quite different than unobtrusive craftsmanship, invisible editing. Camera angles, jump cuts, the montage scene where the characters break through that fourth wall and talk directly at you, the viewer, all of those are the opposite of continuity editing. And sometimes it's easier to make it clear to you what you've become used to, which is primarily continuity editing, when you see the opposite of it. And Do the Right Thing is a good example of disjunctive editing. Lee and the cinematographer really want us to be aware and keep a bit of distance from what's going on, which is the way in which we work from emotion into the world of ideas, as we talked about in montage editing. A couple of other things to note. This is a whole cast of characters. This film introduces a whole community of characters in order to get its message across and to introduce us to the various people, all of whom contribute in some way to the film. At the same time, there are perhaps some main characters. One of them is the character of Sal, and he is, as some of the literature around this film shows, perhaps the most well-developed and complicated characters in a film that tends to be made up of people who are kind of types, not psychologically well-developed. The actor Danny Aiello, who played Sal, specifically wanted to be able to portray him in a way that seemed less stereotypical, and in doing so creates a character who is both an important nurturing part of the community and also very much an outsider to it. Some of you noted the use of color, which is quite significant and was talked about in Visions of Light. And I want to also comment on a couple of characters who really serve not really to move any storyline, but rather to offer commentary, again, to us as viewers. One of those is Mr. Senior Love Daddy, the radio host, who comments on what's going on. And then the other are the three men who are always against that red wall, which of course symbolizes heat over this 24-hour period, who also ask us to consider the questions they're asking. Why is this neighborhood in the shape that it is? Do people need to take more responsibility for their own lives? Are they oppressed? Is it both of them? And so those characters are like a Greek chorus, perhaps, serve mainly as a way of talking with the audience about the film. So you can see all of these things are a very different way of constructing a film story. I also want to say that for me, the film is not a clear film. I don't really see Sal as the biggest reason why we have communities that are under-resourced and don't have investment in them. He is a small business person who himself, as the film points out, has worked with his own hands quite a bit to have this small shop. And so that whole theme song of Fight the Powers That Be, those powers, in my view, are not Sal, but much bigger socioeconomic forces that create neighborhoods like the one that's depicted in this film. Similarly, I also don't find that juxtaposition of quotes by Malcolm X and Martin Luther King speak directly to the film either. And so I think that the film is not clear. It just raises a lot of questions. And in fact, Spike Lee has said, it's not the filmmaker's job to provide answers. Our job is to ask the questions. And so the film raises a lot of questions through this cast of characters, all of whom play a role in the story. And the end is not clear what will happen in this community now that the place that everybody has convened in and actually eaten in no longer exists. So those are a few thoughts I have on the film. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a masterpiece of innovation in every way, and really deserves its place as a contemporary classic and a film that people should see. So I hope you enjoyed it and found it a worthwhile experience.